Hello, believers, non believers, and everyone in between. You're listening to Stories with Sapphire. I am Sapphire Sandalo. Now get cozy and open your mind because it's story time.
Hello, everybody. Happy Wednesday. Happy Pride Month. Welcome to Stories with Sapphire Live. I am Sapphire Sandalo. This is the live stream that I do every Wednesday at 5:30 Pacific Standard Time, where I read some emails and stories that may not make it into the podcast or a YouTube video. I mean, I guess this is technically a YouTube video since we're on YouTube, but we're not gonna nitpick here. All right. Like always, if you want to submit a story or a question or just want to say hi, you can send that to storieswithsapphire@gmail.com. It's right here on the screen the entire time. I'm a little tired, y'all. I had a pretty good Memorial Day weekend. That's probably why I feel like I've been drinking a lot. And ooh, what am I? My headphone thingies just like went out, so that was weird. Or was it my ear? Oh, we're off to a great start. But yeah, just been having real weird, vivid dreams, really weird experiences. Something did happen kinda last night. I won't go into too much detail because I'm gonna save that story, but I did before. So sometimes before bed, I'll set a type of intention, whether that's me wanting to communicate with something or have someone visit me, or maybe I want my brain to figure out a solution while I sleep. Last night, I asked someone to visit me in my dream. And then I went to bed, and then in the middle of the night, so our dogs sleep in the bed with us. And I woke up because my dog Norman all of a sudden just like shot up, and then he stood right on top of me and then just stared over the edge of the bed as if he was like looking at something. He's never done that before. He'll like jump off and on the bed like because he can't sleep or what, I don't know why he does that. But he just shot up and then just stood and stared. And I remember I was very sleepy and I was just like, Norman, like, come back to bed, come back to bed. And he would not budge. And he stood like that for maybe, I don't know, a good while. And I was like looking at where he was staring and I couldn't see anything, but who knows, man? Who knows? I'm pretty sure Norman can see things, as most dogs can. Oh, thank you for the super chat, Adam Lombardo. Excited for stories and because Johnny Depp wins. You know, I don't think I have a comment on the case. I haven't been following it as deeply as most people have. Just like passing videos on like TikTok of people commenting on things, and I'm not entirely sure. I don't have all the facts of what went down, what the case is like even about, but it sounds like a whole mess, and I just like didn't have the energy to follow it. But okay, I'm glad you're excited. And someone asked, Tagalog ka ba, ate? No, Cebuano. Cebuano ko. All right. Oh, and as always, out. Wow, I'm tired, y'all. This is gonna be a great stream. At the end of every stream, I do a collective reading for all of us. It'll probably be something like, get some sleep, girl. Oh, and also a couple fun little announcements before we get into the stories. I was part of the launch for a company called Focusrite. They just launched a new podcast interface, and what that means is it's something that you plug your mic in, your headphones in, you control your audio input. You can record audio straight from your computer if you're interviewing people. It's perfect for podcasters, and I was in the ad campaign for that, so that was super cool. I posted it on all of my socials, and it's also on Focusrite. So we are Focusrite, I believe. And they're also going to do little featurettes of all the podcasters that they featured in the ad. So look out for that. That's super fun. There was one other thing. Oh, yes. And a new episode of Stories with Sapphire came out today. It is about the tikbalang. I'm sure most of you already are familiar with that. It's probably one of my favorite episodes I've done so far of Stories with Sapphire, the animated version. So go check it out and share it with people, y'all. There are still people always asking where I am since Snarled. Tell them where I am. All right. Where were we? Oh, yes, duh. Obviously. Let's start with a little shorty. Okay, this one's very short. Let's ease into this. All right, here we go. This is a story. Ooh, my headphones are being real weird today. This is a story from my mom. So when my mom's grandpa died, her family wanted to pray for him up in their room, but my mom and her sister didn't want to. After the prayer, everyone went to sleep while my uncle slept on the couch near the kitchen. My mom and her sister were the only ones awake. Later in the night, they both heard from downstairs in the kitchen loud banging, like all the cabinets were slamming open and shut. After a little bit, they put two and two together and thought it was their grandpa, getting back at them for not praying. Then the noise stopped, and they couldn't go to bed in the morning. They asked my uncle if he heard anything last night in the kitchen, and he said no. So it was like only they were able to hear all the noise. I love a little short little thing. Yeah, I've heard stories. Oops, where did you go? I've heard stories like that where it's not that people are being punished. It's more like spirits will come and be like, hey, like kind of, just as if a parent or a grandparent would discipline someone for misbehaving. That happens all the time. So yeah, I'm not surprised if that's what it was. Cool. All right. Dude, my headphones are doing something weird. It's like, is the audio okay though? I'm wondering if it's just my headphones that's doing it. Because it's sort of like the audio keeps like going back and forth. It's very strange. But it's given me like a weird like, whoa. It's very hot in here too. This is a weird day, everyone. Okay. This one's called Shadow People, Astral Projection, or Possession from Jens. Hi, Sapphire. I'm writing to you because I've had many paranormal and otherworldly experiences and believe I might have a spirit attached to me or watching over me. I'm listening to your podcast right now. The Shapes in the Darkness episode brought back a few memories about my own experiences. It's too long to put into this email, but if it's possible, I would like to talk to you about them in a call. Okay? The short version of it is that me and my eldest brother, both since birth, have had similar experiences regarding sleep, like sleeping eyes wide open, walking around the house, crying, and hysterically yelling out, "Mommy, where are you?" even when she was right in front of us. I don't know if my brother remembers what he used to see in his dreams then, but I do, and it's pretty disturbing to me. I've seen a shadow person in my room, and I've heard whispers in my room. I've gone to sleep and woken up crying in another room. 2 years ago, I sleepwalked again, crying, and I even talked to my mother in that state. I woke up crying in my bathroom, confused as to how I got there, and I went downstairs, and my mom asked me, "Are you feeling better now?" I was confused, and she told me that I had come downstairs about 10 minutes prior, and she understood that something was off. She told me that it felt like someone or something else had taken over my body, or that I was in a trance and someone was guiding me. There are many details I left out right now because it's too much typing, and I'm holding on to hope that we can have a call and talk about it. Wow, okay. So let's see here. Yeah, sleepwalking is so wild. It's not something I believe I've ever done. I do sleep talk. My husband actually was sleep talking this morning, and I filmed it because it was so creepy. He literally sounded like a spirit box. Like, not really saying fully coherent things. It kind of just sounded like almost words, which is like what a spirit box is, and then you interpret right the sounds. It was weird. Why did I bring that up? Oh, so I mean, sleepwalking is a very normal thing. I don't actually know what the scientific explanation for it is. Does anyone know if that is out there? Um, I've heard of people who sleepwalk and then they end up like in a place where there is a lot of paranormal activity that's found, or like something's found. So I guess it's sort of a mix of how when we're dreaming, we are more susceptible to hearing messages or being, yeah, being communicated with, because we're in such a state of relaxation and allowing our conscious mind to take a back seat. So I don't know. I I mean, it sounds like you're safe. I don't think it's something you should worry too much about, but it sounds like it's something that happens frequently. So yeah, I don't know. Sorry, I'm having a hard time thinking. Did I mention that I'm tired? Oh boy. All right, we're gonna move on. Thank you, Jens, for sending that. All right, this is called Security Guard. All right, here we go. Oh, Adam says sleepwalking is actually genetic. Interesting. It's creepy as hell. Hi, at the Sapphire. This is my first time submitting a story, so please bear with me as I try to narrate one of the scariest encounters I've ever had. Back when I was still living in the Philippines, my high school had a taekwondo class after school around 5 p.m. We would gather on the 5th floor for the class. On the 4th floor, there was a small cubicle with a glass top for the school security guard. One day, we were taking a 15-minute break, and so I decided to go out of the school where the street food carts were stationed to get some snacks. When I got to the 4th floor, as I passed the security guard cubicle, a face that looked like it had been mauled on one side slammed on the glass, sending me jumping down each staircase to get out of the school as fast as I could. I got out of the school panting, and I pulled my cell phone out and texted my instructor, stating that my mom wanted me to get home ASAP and that I couldn't go back to class. I was sweating so bad. My heart felt like it was beating out of my chest, and the image of that face stuck in my head. I have a photographic memory, so I couldn't sleep all night and was just terrified to go back to school the next day. I waited for one of my classmates outside the school to have someone with me going up those stairs to our classroom on the 4th floor. Some of my friends were huddled around, and they started talking about an incident that happened the day before. It turns out it was about the security guard. They said that he got shot in the face and half of his face was jacked up, and he died. This stopped my heart. I was so afraid to go in and out of that classroom alone since, and every time I pass by that cubicle, that face pops up in my head, slamming the glass. I don't know if it was a spirit that I saw that day, but that was one of the most terrifying things I've ever seen. From Erica. Whoa, okay. I have a couple questions. Maybe I misunderstood. So did you didn't see it when it was happening. You saw it before it happened? Like it was kind of like you had a vision of the security guard being shot in the face? That's pretty weird. But yeah, it sounds very creepy and traumatizing, and thank you for sharing that with us. All right, here we go. Okay. Yeah, let's do this little guy. This one's, oops. Okay. I believe the author of this one is in the chat. This one's called Tom's Woods. Is this one fiction or nonfiction? You want to let us know? All right. Let's see here. One night, Key and her friend Ava had nothing better to do. So they decided to explore parts of their neighborhood that they had never been to before. Ava was on her bike, but since Key couldn't ride one, she just walked. When Ava sped down a random street, she saw some sort of weird fence. Key, you might want to come see this. It looked like a box, but it was way too tall to climb. Key ran up to it and peered through one of the gaps in the fence and saw some electrical stuff and what seemed to be a park. I think there's a park around the corner, Key yelled. Ava quickly pedaled to the end of the street and Key ran behind them. When they turned the corner, they saw a park, along with some woods. Ava and Key hung out at the park for a bit before deciding to go home. Little did Key know something horrible would happen there months later. The next day, Key got their friend Ruby to go with them to the park. When they got there, Ruby was insisting that they go into the woods. "Come on, it can't be that bad," Ruby shouted at Key. "Are you crazy? I don't know what's in there," Key shouted back. Even though Ruby was disappointed, they didn't go into the woods. About a month later, it was Halloween Day. Ruby and Key decided to go into the woods before going trick-or-treating. Even if they didn't go far, Ruby was very happy. About 3 days later, Ruby and Key were back at the park. But after about 10 minutes, 4 boys from their school who never really liked Ruby and Key decided to show up. "What are you doing here?" Key yelled at them. "Ugh, do you ever shut up?" one of the boys yelled back. Another one of them picked up a rock and threw it at them. "Run!" Ruby yelled to Key as they both ran into the woods. After about 10 minutes of running, they decided they were safe. "What sort of morons throw rocks at people?" Ruby said. After sitting there behind a tree for about 20 minutes, they heard rustling from one of the bushes. They thought it might have been one of the boys who were throwing rocks at them, but a boy named Tom, who Key knew, came from one of the bushes. "What the heck are you doing here?" "I'd ask you the same thing." "Here, I'll help you out of here." Tom was the person who sat behind Key on the bus to school. After they left the woods, Tom went back into them. Even though Key, Tom, and Ruby were all on the same bus, Ruby had no idea who Tom was. The next day, when Key got on the bus, she realized, "I sit in the back of the bus. No one sits behind me. So who helped us out of the woods?" Oh, cute. This is, it's nonfiction? This sounds very, I love a story that's like, oh, then who was phone, or when there are more people, or when there's people that you can't like account for. I love stories like that. So that was really cool. I got a little bit confused at the end. So they thought that there was a guy named Tom who sat behind them on the bus, but then they realized there is no such thing as Tom. Is that? Aye. Cool. Well, thank you so much for sending that in. All right, I'm going to mark that as... All right, I believe... Do we have time for this one? We got time for this one. All right, here we go. We got one called The Legend of the Wriggling Body, or Kunekune. Okay, I haven't read this before, so let's see how this goes. Hello, Sapphire. My name is Hayden, and I just want to say that I have been a huge fan of yours since Snarled. I remember when I first saw an ad for your channel. I watched one video and was immediately invested in every news story. Aw, thank you. I remember in 6th grade, I would tell your stories to my classmates in school until I eventually got in trouble. I've always been interested in the paranormal, and watching your videos is what got me into studying folklore and urban legends. So I would just like to thank you for that. In fact, the story I'm about to tell is about an urban legend from Japan that has particularly piqued my interest. Also, I have never written a story before, so sorry for any bad grammar or spelling. One hot summer day in Japan, I was visiting my grandparents' house for a family reunion along with my parents, older brother, and 2 younger sisters. They owned a small 2-level house in the middle of the countryside surrounded by large rice fields. As soon as we got there, I immediately ran up to my grandparents, who greeted me with warm smiles and open arms. A lot of my cousins were there as well and asked if we wanted to play kickball. As the adults conversed, my cousins and I played in the vast open fields. We were choosing teams, and the older kids, including my brother, decided to team up against us younger kids, which we all thought was super unfair, but we had a great time regardless. About an hour into the game, I told my cousins that I needed to use the restroom. I went up to my grandma and asked her where it was in her house, to which she answered in a calm tone, "It's right next to my bedroom upstairs." I thanked her and ran into the house. "Be careful so you don't slip and fall," my grandma called after me. I smiled back, "I will." After I was done using the restroom, I was about to go downstairs when I heard my cousins playing outside of my grandma's room. I peeked inside and saw that her window was open. I poked my head out the window and looked down at my cousins and the adults. My grandma noticed me and waved. I smiled and waved back. I looked up to see the beautiful landscape of rice fields, an ocean of rice stalks that extended for miles. I was about to go back to the stairs when something caught my eye far out in the distance, in the middle of the rice fields. It was a figure. It was completely white and seemed to be swaying or almost wiggling, as if it was being blown by the wind, even though there was no breeze. The best way to describe its appearance would be a paper cutout of a person wiggling in the wind far out in the field. Curious about what I was seeing, I scanned the room for something I could use to get a better look. Right next to the windowsill was a pair of binoculars that my grandparents used to look at birds and other animals in the area. I looked through the binoculars. Just before my vision landed on the figure, I heard a loud voice behind me. "Hey!" I jumped with surprise, dropping the binoculars and whipping around. My brother was standing in the doorway. "Come on, everyone's waiting." I apologized. "Sorry, I was just looking at something I saw in the rice fields." My brother looked out the window and saw the figure. It was still swaying, bending, and contorting its body parts in a way that no human should be able to do. It seemed very unnatural. My brother took the binoculars and looked through them at the creature. I saw his face turn pale as he dropped the binoculars and grabbed his chest. His eyes were bloodshot and tears were streaming out of them like a running sink. In a panic, I asked, "What's wrong? What did you see?" With an anguished look on his face, he said, "You're better off not knowing." Before I knew what was going on, my parents came into the room to check on us. And when they saw my brother, an expression of shock and worry engulfed their faces. They took him into the guest room, and I could hear them on the phone with someone. My grandparents and a few of my other relatives were waiting nervously outside the door. My grandma looked at me and asked if I knew what was going on. I told her about the figure that I saw, and when I described what it looked like, her face turned serious. "I want you to listen to me very carefully," she said. "Did it appear to be wiggling?" I was so shocked that she knew this. All I could do was nod and say, "Do you know what it was?" My grandmother nodded. I believe what you and your brother saw was a kunekune. They are spirits that appear in open fields and are described as being completely white. It's said that they have the power to drive you insane the closer you look at it, and if you touch it, you will die. A shiver ran down my spine. Just then, I could hear my brother laughing maniacally from inside the guest room. I began to cry and asked my grandma, "Is he going to be all right?" My grandmother looked at me with a pained expression, an expression that told me that my brother would never be the same. Kunekune, also known as the wriggling body, comes from Japanese folklore. They are mostly found in large rice fields, but in rare cases, they've been spotted in the middle of the ocean. They appear to be dancing or wiggling, hence the name kunekune, which means wiggling. In most stories, they're pure white, but in a select few, they are black. It's said if you get too close to it, you'll go insane, and if you touch it, you will die on the spot. The best thing to do is ignore it. If you do, then it will ignore you as well. Some people think that kunekune sightings are just scarecrows. But in Japan, scarecrows are believed to come alive if you look at them for too long or at night. With that, I hope you enjoyed my story. Ooh, that was cool. I have never heard of the kunekune. Um, is this is fiction? Yeah, I'm reading the intro again. That's super cool. I like that. Is anyone familiar with the kunekune legend? Is that a thing? I never heard of that. I actually only recently heard of white silhouette, white shadow people. That's something I'm only recently learning about, which is interesting. Sorry, my lip is peeling. All right. Ooh, okay. Time, you know what time it is? Time for collective reading. Okay, I'm very curious to see what comes up because I'm so tired. Let's see. So this is a collective reading. You resonate with it or not. Even if you don't resonate with it, it's still it still gives you insight the way that you react to what I'm saying. Does that make sense? That's what tarot is. That's what oracle readings are. It's not really whether or not the person is saying things that are completely accurate. You want to pay attention to how it's making you feel. Because if I'm telling you everything's going to work out great and then you respond with, I don't think it is, then that's telling you something. It means something needs to change, right? Okay, we'll go with 3. Ready? This is a cool one. I've actually never gotten this card before, so this is fun. This is the shapeshifter. Transform and unveil your gifts. Yo. I like that. All right, here we go. I have never gotten this one before. Oh, this resonates with me. Okay. Take your time and focus on developing your gifts and strengths. In shamanic traditions, a shapeshifter is either an animal that has the capacity to change between species or a shaman who has the capacity to transform into an animal to go journeying. If there's a wild animal you're particularly drawn to or fascinated by, it's probably because you can transform into one in your meditation or journeying practice to go exploring in other worlds. When you shift into animal form, you can see the world through different eyes and tap into the animal survival skills to help yourself through a particular situation. You may have been through many challenges and lows, but now you're in a space of transformation. You are moving beyond your past challenges and honing your current strengths. There are opportunities for you to discover and rediscover the gifts and talents that you were born with and born to share. All of your past experiences have only helped you see how strong you really are. You are an amazing soul who can change and transform in ways that people least expect. You have many talents that you will share in your lifetime. You are guided to stay focused on the light, knowing that it will guide you forward. When this card arrives, there's also an opportunity for you to tap into the power of your spirit animal. Note if you're seeing a particular animal regularly because its medicine is coming to you. That's a cool one. That's probably why I never got it before, because I wasn't ready to shapeshift. All right. Oh, Devansh Singh. Why is everyone calling her auntie? It's actually Ate, not auntie. A-T-E, Ate. Ate means older sister in Tagalog, Filipino. All right, everyone. I am burning up in this booth, so I'm going to get water. I'm going to take a nap. I have just felt so tired in this house, and I think it's because of the things. I think there's things. Anyways, all right. Thank you so much for joining me today. I do this every week, same time, same place. If you want to send me an email, you can send it to storieswithsapphire@gmail.com. Also, I have a Patreon. Every Thursday, we do a psychic development session. So if you're interested in doing that and learning more, go to patreon.com/storieswithsapphire and you can join the Discord channel as well. All right. I thank you all for joining me, and I'll see you next week.